1. Imagine you are sitting at a crowded dinner table. The air is thick with the sharp clinking of silverware against porcelain, and the high-pitched, forced laughter of someone desperately trying to be the center of attention. Around you, the air is filled with empty chatter. Who bought what? Who went where? And the exhausting performance of looking happy. But you? You are just sitting there. You feel like a ghost in a room full of actors. You are watching a loud, chaotic play that you no longer have a script for. You have deep, complex thoughts swirling in your mind, insights about life, pain, and truth, but you choose to keep them locked away. It is not that you have nothing to say. It is that you have realized the cost of explanation is simply too high. Why spend your precious mental energy trying to explain your soul to someone who is only listening for a chance to talk about themselves? Have you ever noticed that as the world outside gets louder, the silence inside you becomes more unshakable? Why is it that those who have walked through the darkest storms are the ones who eventually choose to worship the quiet? Today we go beyond the surface to understand the psychology of the silent. Because sometimes the most profound things are said when you choose to say nothing at all. 2. We often label the quiet ones as broken. Society looks at someone who has stopped participating in the noise and immediately searches for a flaw. They call it shyness. They call it social anxiety. Or worse, they call it arrogance, as if your silence is a judgment against them. But what if this stillness isn't a sign of what you've lost, but a sign of what you've gained? Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. According to researcher Richard Tedeschi, many people who survive deep emotional storms don't just bounce back to who they were before. They evolve. Their silence isn't a retreat from the world. It is a radical restructuring of their priorities. When your mind has been forced to process heavy, life-altering truths, your internal bandwidth changes. This is the reality of cognitive load. Your brain simply stops wanting to waste its precious energy on the superficial. Think of it like a computer that has been upgraded to run complex, high-level software. It no longer has the space or the desire to run the glitchy, low-resolution programs of small talk and social performance. Your silence is a sophisticated filter. It is an intelligent choice to stop broadcasting on every frequency just to feel included. You aren't being cold. You are being intentional. You are finally learning how to save your voice for the things and the people that actually matter. 3. This silence is not a void. It is a presence. It is the sign of a person who has finally retired from the war of words. The first thing you notice is that you no longer feel the desperate need to be right. In the past, you might have stayed up until 2 a.m, typing out a response to a misunderstanding or raising your voice just to be heard over someone else's ego. But now, you understand a profound truth. Winning an argument at the cost of your inner peace is actually a devastating loss. You realize that you cannot control how someone else perceives you, and for the first time in your life, you are okay with being misunderstood. Then, there is what I call the unspoken truth. When you stop focusing on what you are going to say next, you start seeing people for who they actually are. You look at the person boasting about their success, and instead of feeling annoyed, you see the trembling insecurity hiding behind their expensive watch. You look at the person shouting in anger, and you see a wounded child who never learned how to ask for love. Your silence isn't a wall of judgment anymore. It becomes a quiet form of compassion. You see their pain, you recognize it, and you choose not to add to the noise. Let me tell you about Min. For years, Min was the life of the party, the person who filled every awkward silence with a joke or a story. He was terrified of the quiet because in the quiet, he felt invisible. He spent his life trying to prove his worth through his speech. One cold Tuesday evening, Min sat across from his family, ready to finally explain the weight he had been carrying for years, the sacrifices he made, the unfairness of it all. He had practiced his speech 1,000 times, but as he opened his mouth, he looked at their faces. He saw the blank stares, the impatient checking of phones, the total absence of empathy. In that split second, a shift occurred. He realized that they didn't have the capacity to understand him. No combination of words, no matter how perfect, could bridge that gap. Min didn't get angry. He didn't cry. He simply closed his mouth, offered a small, gentle smile, and stood up. He walked out of the house and into the cool night air. For the first time, he didn't feel lonely. He felt free. He realized that his voice was a treasure, and he was no longer going to throw it into a bottomless well. He chose himself. He chose silence. And in that silence, he finally found his power. 4. This silence we are talking about isn't just a philosophical choice. It is a biological necessity. Deep within your nervous system, a profound transformation has taken place. When you have experienced prolonged stress or emotional upheaval, your brain enters a state known as hypervigilance. Think of it as an internal radar system that never turns off. Your amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for detecting threats, becomes incredibly sharp. It prioritizes observation over interaction. You aren't being antisocial, you are being pro-safety. Your brain has learned that in order to protect yourself, it is much more efficient to watch, listen, and analyze than it is to speak and expose your inner world. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, a world-renowned expert on trauma, explains this beautifully in his work. He discovered that when the mind is overwhelmed by heavy experiences, the brain's physiology actually changes. There is a specific area called Broca's area, the part of the brain responsible for turning thoughts into spoken words. During times of high emotional stress, this area can actually go offline. It is as if the circuit breaker trips to prevent a fire. The brain literally loses its ability to put feelings into words, leading many to seek refuge in a deep, healing stillness. Beyond that, your body is practicing a form of biological budgeting. Every word you speak, every social mask you wear, and every argument you engage in costs energy. For someone who has spent years in survival mode, those resources are depleted. Your brain instinctively begins to conserve its energy for internal recovery and emotional processing. It stops funding the theater of social life so it can fund the hospital of the soul. Your silence is simply your body's way of saying, "I am busy healing. Please do not disturb." 5. But we must be careful. It is easy to romanticize the quiet and call it strength, but there is a dangerous line between a peaceful sanctuary and a silent prison. There is a vital difference between choosing to be silent and being unable to speak. One is an act of power, a way to protect your inner peace. The other is emotional numbness. It is a state where you want to reach out, you want to be known, but your voice feels trapped behind a wall of ice. This is not healing, it is isolation. If your silence is born from a fear of being hurt again, or if you feel completely disconnected from your own feelings, you might be drifting toward a dark shore. The goal of growth is not to shut the world out forever. It is to learn who is actually worthy of your words. Don't let your silence become a brick wall that keeps out the very people who have the patience to listen to your heartbeat. Use your quiet as a filter, not a cage. Because even the most resilient soul needs a place where it is safe to finally be heard. 6. In Japan, there is an ancient art called Kintsugi. When a piece of pottery breaks, the masters do not throw the shards away, nor do they try to hide the cracks with invisible glue. Instead, they repair the fractures with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The result is something far more beautiful and resilient than the original piece. The cracks are not flaws to be ashamed of. They are the most valuable part of the story. Your silence is that gold. It is the precious material you have used to knit the broken pieces of your soul back together. It represents every lesson learned, every storm weathered, and every boundary finally set. Remember, choosing to be quiet is not the same as disappearing. It is simply moving the conversation inward. It is the moment you stop performing for a world that may never truly see you, and start speaking to the only person whose opinion truly defines your worth. Yourself. The world does not need another explanation from you. It does not need you to justify your peace or defend your journey. In the end, the only understanding that truly matters is the one you find in the stillness of your own heart. 7. Before we close today, I want to ask you something. Was there ever a specific moment, perhaps a heated argument or a long-awaited conversation, where you were ready to speak your mind, but then you just stopped? You looked at the person in front of you and realized that your words were far too precious to be wasted on ears that weren't ready to listen. If you have a story like that, or if you are currently navigating your own season of silence, please share it in the comments below. Your experiences are the gold that repairs this community. If this deep dive resonated with you, consider subscribing to Tom Lee Moy. By joining us, you help us continue exploring the hidden corners of the human mind with the depth and care they deserve. And for those who want to support our research even further, please check out the Join button to become a member. If you are wondering if your quiet nature hides a deeper strength, you should watch our next video. Why those who walk alone often possess the highest emotional intelligence. Until next time, cherish your peace. It is the only thing that is truly yours.